Hey everyone, today's topic is why I quit the corporate world, and I really wanted to share this story because it truly resonates with me, especially with how I see this socially persuaded career path that so many of us are pushed into. It is almost like this end goal for smart kids who did everything right, where you graduate from high school with good grades, then you graduate college, and then you land some big four or prestigious entry level office job, right? And suddenly everyone acts like you made it. Like this whole idea of the perfect career path, I just want to spill some thoughts about it because I myself took this path without realizing almost until it was too late that for me personally, this whole thing felt like a complete scam, man. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you have to quit your job and start a YouTube channel or some shit like that. That's not the point. What I want to talk about is value. The value this kind of job provides, or rather, the value it doesn't provide. And that's a little different. So, when I was in college, I wasn't the smartest guy in the room. I mean, I had good grades and stuff, but mentally, I think my brain was still like a 15-year-old child who just kept postponing the reality of what life would actually be like after college. Okay, maybe it wasn't that harsh, but I definitely wasn't sure if corporate ladder would fit me when I was in college until I tried it, of course. I studied insurance and finance, by the way, and at the time I felt like what I was studying was interesting to me. I did enjoy some classes, especially when we had to write household insurance policies and actually implement knowledge into real world cases, or when we had to make a discounted cash flow analysis for a real company from 10K reports, which was like a group project for a whole semester. They were adding real value because we had an amazing professors and those classes generally made sense to me. And I chose this path myself. At least I thought so at the time. But in reality, I was mostly just pursuing what society and people around me thought I should pursue. And at the same time, in contrast to those finance classes, most of the other classes were related to basic accounting and doing Excel spreadsheets. And dude, I can't express how much I already hated it back then. So, long story short, I graduated with bachelor's degree and then I landed an entry level position at a big four company in data risk analysis. And as it usually is, the job itself was mostly about gathering data and analyzing it in Excel. Basically useless job. And man, I lasted around 10 months before I quit. That stuff was ridiculous to me. I never felt less useful than during that time period, and it felt like, yeah, I have good knowledge from university where maybe I just got in wrong department and was just unlucky. But considering that I was gathering data from my colleagues and looking out already for alternative departments, it pretty much looked the same anywhere I looked into. And so just imagining myself doing this for the next 40 years did not stick with me at all, especially in a world that is changing so fast where having good Excel skills almost feels funny at this point. Because to me, it definitely doesn't feel like the kind of skill that will create real leverage in your life later on. You don't even know if it's going to pay off long term because of AI and everything that is coming. This path that our parents thought would bring us to safe haven and stability, I think it's wrong now. I mean, when our parents were young, the only way to make decent money was usually through regular work. And the higher you climbed on the corporate ladder, the bigger chance you had for prosperity. But in our reality, right now, sitting at the desk 8 hours a day analyzing data and doing it for an absurdly small wage, at least from how I felt, was the biggest waste of time. And I don't see why companies would keep so much personnel in data analysis in, like, let's say 5 years, when it could be much cheaper and faster to have one senior accountant and AI specialist, where accountant would provide data and the AI specialist would write the right prompts or would build the right workflow, and the AI tool would do the rest of the work. I don't know if it will be exactly like that, but there is definitely room for massive change, right? And the latest thing I heard is that new graduates already have difficulties landing entry-level jobs in finance, which maybe makes sense why. So every day when I walked out of that office at this prestigious company, man, I felt like useless fucking crap. Because if you take away my computer and my company badge, like, what do I actually know? Like, what value value can I provide to society? What value can I bring to people that could lead me to actual prosperity, money, and respect? And there literally wasn't an answer. That scared the crap out of me, to say the least. I mean, I didn't have a backup plan when I decided to quit, but I told myself I would rather find it on the way than waste even one more day in this nonsense. Because every next day I spent at that desk was another day far away from the things that actually matter to me. It took me some time to understand this concept, as weird as it might sound, because it is just common sense. But in real life, it's not that obvious always, right? But yeah, anyways, it shouldn't be that hard to understand that one of the ways to create meaning and value in your life is to actually do something that matters. I'm talking about actual value and not only for yourself. What I mean is, until you start providing help, learning an actual skill, or creating a product or service that brings value to others, which could potentially even become business, you probably won't feel that much value in your own life either. And money is where the value is, or at least where the perception of value is. But I'm not talking about fake value, like creating an image of something valuable and selling a shitty product with good marketing. That's not what I saw myself doing. I'm talking about actual value, jobs or skills or products that help people, where people happily accept it and pay for it. And after I quit corporate, it wasn't easy to quickly find something that matched all the criteria for me, because if the only way I saw myself for many years was going into corporate and then suddenly you switch into a completely unknown path, you need critical thinking in that moment. You also need a clear mind under pressure, because you have to understand what you are capable of, what skills would be easier for you to learn, what you are genuinely interested in, and what kind of job can bring value to you and to others. And at the same time, if you don't have money to create a product or start something bigger yet, you need to find a job that at least doesn't destroy your health, right? So I took a shit ton of different jobs in blue collar while trying to find the best match. I worked in logistics hub as a construction and assembly guy, and honestly it wasn't bad. It already gave me some value in what I was doing, because I could see the results of my work. Like, I built something and that thing would be useful, maybe not for me personally, but for somebody else, and that was already a good sign for me. But it also felt like it wouldn't lead anywhere close to where I wanted to be in a couple of years. Then I moved to scaffolding, and to say the least, man, if you have a choice, don't go into scaffolding unless you really know what you are doing. That kind of job will destroy your health and your joints in literally a couple years. It is so physically demanding that over time you may lose more than you get in return. And honestly, I can say this kind of job is perfect to be replaced by AI machines one day. But what I figured out after a little over a year after quitting corporate was that I couldn't keep switching jobs without understanding the direction and potential outcome. So while I was working in logistics and scaffolding, I was always looking around. I was asking myself, what are the good directions in blue collar? Which positions give you the biggest leverage in the end? I didn't want to just go to work and then go home. I was trying to analyze my surroundings and understand how everything worked. For example, when I was building in the logistics hub, I noticed that the people who had the best combination of salary, respect, and less physical destruction were usually the electricians. They were considered one of the most valuable parts of the chain. But at the same time, it is also a dangerous job. And at the time, I felt like it would take too much time to get properly into the field. I was already 24, so I kept looking forward. Then when I got into scaffolding, we were working around this huge metallurgy plant that was going through reconstruction. There were like 20 different independent companies around us, like pipe fitters, filter cleaners, scaffolders, welders, and like all kinds of contractors. And so I started making connections, talking to people and collecting information. And so the more I talked with different contractors, the more I realized that for me, at that time, there were two best options. It was either big machine operator or welder. Both seemed like they had good potential outcome, because as a big machine operator, you don't risk damaging your health as much as other workers, because you're not exposed to the same physical strain. Maybe you deal with back pain, but theoretically you could do it long enough to save money and build something bigger from there. And also you operate big cool machines, which is kind of cool if you ask me. It's like playing with toys but for big guys, and you get decent money for it. But it still didn't fully fit me because I always felt like I wanted to craft something with my hands and not just operate something. And that's when I figured out that welding might be the right path, because welding to me is one of the most universal jobs you can do. With welding, you can craft and fabricate custom parts, you can fix things, you can work in the auto industry, food industry, like you can create furniture, you can create art or custom projects, you can even create your own masterpieces if you want. Tell me which other job can give you that much variety besides welding. But at the same time, I had this fear about my health, obviously, because there is still this stereotype that welding is bad for you. And yes, it can be true, but I think it was much more true 20 or 30 years ago when PPE and safety standards were way worse. Welders back then were welding in conditions where they were breathing in all the shit non-stop, and of course their health got ruined after many years in the industry because nobody cared about it. But now with better standards and better technology, we have good welding helmets and respirators and air filter systems where the risks are still there, but if you take safety seriously, you can minimize them a lot. So the answer became obvious to me. I decided to go into welding. Because for me, quitting corporate wasn't just about leaving an office job. It was about realizing that I didn't want to spend my life chasing a career path that looked good from the outside but felt completely empty on the inside. I wanted to build real skills, where is the real value, and I wanted to feel like even if someone takes away my badge or my job title, I still know how to do something useful with my own hands. I don't know if this story resonated with you, but if it did, let me know, guys. Peace.